walking downtown to mail my taxes. We live a few blocks from downtown, maybe 10 blocks, but it's an easy walk. Brought my ukulele. Punky Bluester this time. Probably should have gotten away from the lawn mowing before starting this, but also I wanted to capture First Presbyterian Church. I grew up going to a First Presbyterian Church, and I moved here, and I felt a connection with Ferry Street and the Ferries and all that, who founded both this town and another town I lived, Montague. I think it was created for Amanda Ferry's son. Well, and I guess Williams Ferry is his name. Anyway, don't need to memorialize that like crazy, but just the other day I discovered, maybe like a month ago, I was writing a song about having had a pretty privileged childhood without knowing what privilege was, you know, good school, good grades, good home structure for getting schoolwork done, private lessons for music, but yeah. So basically, just on this church, it says that, 1836. Some people moved here, the Ferries, and they formed the first church in Grand Haven, First Presbyterian Church. I've been to this church like twice. I went to this other church where I did recitals, piano recitals, the white steeple, and also went to that one a few times. That one's Episcopalian. My grandmother was an Episcopalian nun. That was the basis of her faith. I don't know if that's officially what it's called. Never really chose either one as a church home because I struggle with church homes, probably because I moved so much, but probably because there's a little bit of a quality in the churches I've gone to where they're like excited you're there because you're like either someone that will be saved or you're someone that will join and be, I don't know. I think it's similar to, this is really dark to say this, but I think it's similar to musicians who chase like fame or followers. I think churches do it too. I think any social structure that creates a social comfort, which is not the same as comfort, social comfort. So social comfort would be maybe something you would call like certainty, or knowing that if you say a certain thing like God is good, that everyone in your social network will be like, yeah. Or knowing that if you say a certain thing like I believe in God, everyone in your social network will be like, boo, that's weird, stop it, you're brainwashed. Like, that would be social discomfort. And so I think that social comfort is one of the most important things we should look at when we look at faith. Because if your faith is feeding into your social comfort, then it would be worthwhile to examine whether or not you are really following a call. And that sounds really harsh, but my calling has made me feel disenfranchised is too strong a word, maybe it's correct, but has made me feel disconnected from both people of faith and people of not faith or anti-faith or atheists. It's made me feel disconnected. The way that I do faith makes me feel disconnected from everyone. It's incredibly uncomfortable, and now I feel like I'm propping myself up, which is not what I wanted to do by saying that. I just wanted to say that like sometimes following a calling that feels internal or prayer-based or meditation-based or just like knowing yourself based or knowing what you believe feels good and right as a good person, the likelihood of it aligning perfectly with literally everyone in your social sphere is so small. And so when people feel disconnect, like, I don't feel like I'm being my authentic self, it's probably because of your social constructs. And so like maybe if you have like multiple social constructs that all believe different things, maybe that would help but actually I've had that before and that just made me a chameleon. Because then in some circles I wanted to affirm certain things in order to feel a little more socially comfortable, and in other circles I wanted to affirm other things in order to feel a little more socially comfortable. And I think it's a little bit of a myth. There are some people that say like, I'm just myself and people can just deal with it, and I'm like, okay, but, and I'm just really realizing this right this second. Like, okay, but what are your social circles? What are your constructs that are either affirming or pushing back against you? Because if all of your social constructs are either letting you be that way or affirming you, and almost nobody's pushing back against you. And I'm not talking about nobody societally. Like, it'd be like going to a Packers game and you love the Packers, and like, who cares that there's Bears fans there? Like, you won't care about that because of course they're there, they're cheering for the other team, and you just boo them, but you don't care about them as people. Like, yes, you don't want them any harm to come to them, but you're not like going to check in and see how they're feeling if their team's not doing well. Now I would. Like, that's the extreme feeling of what it feels like to be an empathetic, like a hyper empathetic person who, I don't think that that's a value judgment. I don't even like the word empath. It's more like being so sensitive to everybody's feelings and energy that you end up like upset that anybody's upset. And those kids, adults, these people are everywhere, and a lot of us end up very introverted because it's not a comfortable way to be in the world, in a world that is jockeying for position, in a world that has hierarchy, in a world that has social comforts. Like, we are social creatures. And so I think it maybe was meant to be a little more natural to sort of find one social community and kind of blend. I was going to say blend in, but I guess I mean more like move in the direction of that. And if you want to be a little bit of a thorn in their side so that you can challenge each other and grow, like, that's one thing, but it's a whole other thing to go just like wholly against your social circles and your social constructs. And it's an even another thing if you have disparate or even warring social one side, the other side, warring social constructs around you, like warring belief systems, and you genuinely see value in or understand some viewpoints of both sides. I don't want to say sides, I mean, like, I don't know. Sometimes it literally just comes down to witnessing pain in people, because I've been through a lot of trauma. I was living a mile from the trade towers when they fell on 9/11. Lived through the 9 months of that trauma, of what it feels like to just be afraid all the time. 9 months in New York City, but then also, you know, proceeded to spend like 10 years kind of denying that PTSD. And then obviously I have all my other traumas that I've talked about many times on this YouTube channel, mostly sexual or physical abuse. But my point is, like, I can't be in a room where somebody's in pain and just be like, well, they're on the other team. They're for the Bears, and I like the Packers, so poo-poo to them. Like, I can't be in those rooms. And I don't know that, and I think what's happening too is that everything's getting so fractioned that now everyone's just calling out each other's flaws. Like, yes, there's so many things I should do, right? It's like, okay, well, if I'm going to say I have faith, does that mean by saying I have faith that I said that I believe that I can do everything for all people? I drove myself crazy trying to do that. Literally crazy. Believing that anytime I saw someone in pain online, I had to speak up. I had to speak up for them. I had to help them through it. I had to help them work through it like I was a therapist. I mean, it's all unpaid work to just go online and try to help people. Or in person. I used to do it in person. I did it in 12-step rooms. I've done it in support groups. I've done it by starting festivals and trying to help younger musicians who don't yet know what the path is. And this is not a pat myself on the back thing. I'm saying that it kind of doesn't work. So I'm not anti-humanity. I don't mean to check out in some sort of like floaty bubble sort of way, like the way I guess some Christians get some criticism for. And I know that I do it too. I maybe don't do it as much because I'm really trying here to like bridge something and connect with people of all beliefs and all thought processes and comforts and discomforts, and I'm really trying to. But at the end of the day, like, I can't live your life for you. I can't, like, I stayed in an abusive relationship for 9 years with that type of philosophy of like, they wanted me to give them a chance, and they asked me to give them a chance for 9 years. And when somebody is hurting you directly, which is, to bring it back to the present, is kind of what was happening. Like, I was hurting myself directly by trying so hard to save people. Like, I don't think that's what Christianity was supposed to be. I think it's one thing to just like share your truth, like bear witness to your truth. So whenever I think of bear witness, I think of actual bears and like stuffed animal bears, and it's cute. It wasn't funny. But my point is, like, even if you use the Christian language or you don't, like, the point of having faith in something bigger than you is kind of to say, I'm tiny. I'm almost nothing. I'm infinitesimally small. And if I'm infinitesimally small, I don't know why I went for that word again, because it's really hard to say well. Like, I got it right the first time. I should have left it at that. Oh, I think I got it right the second time. Infinitesimally. I went for it 3 times. Wow. Feeling bold today, I guess. My point is, you know, if you have faith, it's because, if you have faith in something bigger than you, it's probably because something completely broke you. At least that's what it was for me. Something completely broke me when I was 16. I had faith as a child, but it wavered. But when I became a born again, which, mind you, was also before I then later became an atheist, like a firm atheist in college. And then after 9/11 happened, living in New York and having nothing to turn to, and therapy was not working because I had so much repressed trauma that you can't layer PTSD from, you know, buildings blowing up right by you on top of decades of repressed trauma. So it was like therapy didn't work at all. Therapy asks you to dig open the wound and clean it out. And if you're in a state of crisis because some buildings just blew up right by your home, like I was living a mile away, I was where you can't even go back to your apartment. So suddenly I'm in Manhattan, I've only lived there for a year, and I'm like walking 40 blocks north to a friend's house, and then what was I supposed to do the next night? Like, I didn't. And then I go back there and a guy's telling me he's a locksmith, because I was very like young and cute, and I don't know, I had a lot of eating disorder type issues, but I was very thin and obsessed with being very thin, and there's nothing against that, but for me it had a lot of toxicity inside of it. But anyway, so I looked a very certain way.